Up until 1970, if anybody had told me that I would be interested in the phone and that I would spend the better part of my teens and early 20s on the phone, I would have said, yeah, right. Though I had been interested in electronics and gadgets of various kinds, the telephone never really seemed to be interesting enough to be interested in at all. But that all changed one day in 1969. To get a better idea of how this happened, let me speak a little bit about the times in which this occurred. In 1969 and 70, things were changing. It was becoming more and more acceptable not to be stiff, formal, and uptight. It seemed like everybody was taking the cue to relax and let it all hang out. For example, the summer camp I went to had always had military-style inspections, but in 1969, inspections were discontinued. It just didn't seem appropriate anymore, what with an unpopular war going on and the general dropping of formality in the society. In Long Island, where I lived, a nearby private school had recently relaxed its dress code, no longer requiring male students to wear ties. And so it went. Amazingly, this trend even touched one of the most uptight organizations of its day, the Bell System.
I'm sorry. We are unable to complete your call or file. Please check the area code and number and dial again, or ask your operator for assistance. This is the recording.
Don't you think that's a little, sultry for the phone company? I mean, Ma Bell is supposed to be, well, you know.
Hello, sir. What is your number? And under whose name is this telephone listed? At the tone, daylight time will be 2:56 and 50 seconds.
Oh, gracious, good afternoon. Have I reached the party to whom I am speaking?
I'm sorry, we are unable to complete your call as dialed.
I'm sorry. We are unable to complete your call or file.
Who is that? It couldn't be the phone company, but it was. And when I got it from my Long Island home in 1969, I could not believe it. It sounded more like a come-on than a recording. And it wasn't the only example of Ma Bell letting her hair down. Here's what callers in Atlanta were treated to every time they dialed a disconnected number in 1970.
Excuse me, it's about your call that did not go through. The number you have dialed has probably been disconnected. However, if you wish to verify this report, you may stay on the line and an operator will assist you. If you think you could have dialed incorrectly, please try your call again. This is a recording.
That's a recording? You know, in retrospect, it isn't all that surprising that these things were going on. But this was all happening really, really fast, and things were either getting a lot better or they were going to hell in a handbasket, that was for sure. In any event, that Long Island recording was so unusual that I just had to get it again. And that was the beginning of my playing with the phone. I began dialing various things, trying to get that recording again. Had I not had a rotary phone, I might have started with the code 900 to get it, but just kidding. So here I am trying all sorts of numbers, hoping to find the sultry lady again. And I noticed that certain calls are going through in an interesting way. After I would dial the last digit, I'd hear something like this. Now those tones fascinated me. When I would find a prefix that went through that way, I would dial it over and over just to hear the tones. And then I would vary the number I was dialing slightly to see how it affected the tones I was hearing. So here I was doing something really strange, playing with the phone, that I would never have done, but hey, when a woman comes into your life, you do funny things. Eventually, I did try some other codes, and
I'm sorry. We are unable to complete your call or file. Please check the area code and number and dial again, or ask your operator for assistance. This is a recording.
this recording, as it turned out, was easy to get. It figures, right? All you had to do was dial a prefix or an area code that was not currently assigned. But the quickest thing to dial was 311, and that's what I remembered and used, 311. Now that I could call her any time I wanted, I thought I had something that would last. But, as with so many relationships, she soon turned into a woman I didn't recognize. One day, I dialed 311, and instead of getting this,
I'm sorry.
I got this.
I'm sorry. We are unable to complete your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator for assistance. This is a recording.
When I heard that, something inside me went bleh, because here was Ma Belle back being the old hag that we always knew she was, and this had been used to replace a recording that was really cool. And, you know, at this point, the whole thing might have ended. But for some reason, I just happened to dial 311 again, this time from a different location, Neil's house. My friend Neil had a phone that looked just like mine, but if you dialed 311 from his phone, something different happened.
Sorry. We are unable to complete your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator for assistance. This is a recording. I'm sorry. We are unable to complete your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator for assistance. This is a recording. I'm sorry. We are unable to complete your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator for assistance. This is a recording. I'm sorry.
Now this was strange. Everybody on there was shouting, some were shouting phone numbers, and the whole thing was a bit surreal. Neil and I didn't have any idea what it was we were hearing. We tried calling one of the phone numbers to ask, hey, what is this thing? But when the guy answered, he said, go away, I'm looking for a girl. Apparently he knew what it was. But Neil and I didn't realize that we had just stumbled into a subculture that we would end up spending a lot of time in. This was a new way of communicating over the phone called the party line. Party line is not the correct term, because that's not what this was. But that's what everyone was calling it. And from talking to another friend of Neil's, we found out that there was another party line, so-called, completely different from this one, whose number was 660. Neil's friend demonstrated. First he dialed 660. Then he dialed 7 and hung up. How do you like the fancy ring? He said. Now those days were days when phones rang the same all over Long Island. There weren't any PBXs or cell phones that rang differently, and hearing this odd ring actually filled me with a sense of wonder. It was as if the phone had just learned a new trick, and I had never seen it do anything like this before. So I wanted to know more about this, and I tried dialing 660 myself. In hearing that second dial tone, I had a funny feeling that I had just found a secret doorway, a hidden passageway, an access point that most people didn't know about. And that was true, because this 660 circuit was a test line for repairmen and installers. But people were using it to meet each other. All you had to do was get that tone and flash. Then it was just a matter of waiting for someone else to come on. You could tell when they did, because way in the background, you could hear the other person getting their special dial tone, breaking it, and then starting to yell. That's how it worked. There were never more than 4 people on the line at a time with 660. Well, now there was all this cool stuff to play with on the phone. These party lines, so-called, weren't really party lines at all, but they were a way to meet girls. Neil and I could go to a payphone and shout the number out on 311 or 660, and girls would call us. We didn't even have to use our real names.
Hi.
Hi,
Who is this?
Kathy.
Hi, Kathy. This is Bob.
Hi.
Where are you?
Good.
Well, anyway, the point is these things had a lot of potential. It was July of 1970. We were 13 years old. And this was great. So, of course, the first thing I did when I got home to my house was to dial 660. And absolutely nothing happened.